Alright, this is the 3.4 swapped Trooper. It's been a few weeks since I've tried to start it here, or did start it. So this is a 3.4 liter V6 out of a 94 Pontiac Firebird. I did swap it to use the earlier intake from a 3.1 because it just fits in the engine bay way better. So yeah, got a inline filter here. It's pretty slick. Come to the factory opening, so it has nice cold air input. Right now I have the Mega Squirt wiring using an original factory TBI harness that I've modified, so I have not, it's actually running through the original firewall entry and everything there. That may go back to the multi-port setup. With the multi-port setup, I had an underhood ECU that mounted right here, and I used just this separate standalone fuse block, so everything's completely separate from the vehicle wiring with that one. So yeah, I'll go ahead and fire it up. Like I say, it's been 2 or 3 weeks since I've driven this. So I think the valve lash probably could be tightened down by another quarter turn or so. It does click and clack a little bit when you first start it, but we'll see how it goes here. Mercy, load up. It's my dog, Mercedes. Oh, plants. Oh. Alright. I should have brought the laptop to hook up here, but whatever. So that's one of the things that, you know, a cold start, it's actually kind of warm right now, but it fires, but you gotta help it a little bit before it'll idle properly. So you got a little bit of valve clickety-clackety before it settles down. So no throttle right now. So that just, you know, just got to fight a little bit to start the first time, and then it'll idle. There's a few different ways you can set up the idle air control on this. I haven't really figured out the best way. So it does have an AFR gauge right now. If I put it back to the GM stuff, that'll go away. It's lean right now for some reason, but yeah, like I say, I should have plugged in the laptop so I could tell what exactly it's doing. The Mega Squirt board here, it's a Mega Squirt 2, and there was a wiring fault that basically shorted it out and burned up this end of the board. So actually, there's normally a connector right there, but to salvage this board, I ended up kind of making a pigtail coming off of it to a off-board connector. This is all just burnt up right there. So I've bypassed a few things to, you know, make this board work again because they're not cheap. This is a harness adapter I made to plug it into the factory wiring. So that's how I have it hooked up to just the factory engine bay connectors. I got some stuff labeled here where I've hijacked a few things. Back out, you know, fuel pump, VSS, tack. I mean, that stuff's kind of wired in a little bit different with the coil packs. So yeah, some of the stuff down here I had to hijack. You know, just haven't gotten around to putting that back on yet. All right. Well, let's take it for a little drive. Acceleration enrichment isn't really dialed in yet, so that's why it kind of bogs. And it's not really warmed up yet either. Just got to keep the revs up when you're kind of backing out. So, you know, right now it just kind of wants to die when you're clutching to change gears and whatnot. Roll the window back up here. Well, maybe I'll leave it down so you can hear it. It does have a 3-inch exhaust, which is overkill. I told the guy to use 2.5, and he used 3-inch anyway. So it's got 3-inch high flow cat from MagnaFlow, and it's got a Flowmaster something that the exhaust guy put on there. Told him not to make it loud, and he did anyway. He didn't put a cat on there either. I put that one on after the fact. Really mellowed out the exhaust tone. It was way too raspy before. So there's AFRs. Like I say, once you get it running and warmed up, it cruises around just fine. It does have good power, and with the GM ECU, I mean, it ran good too. I just thought this would be a little more tunable, and it would be if I had the experience and equipment to do it. Really wish I would have grabbed my well, I couldn't find my head mount for the GoPro. I guess a chest mount probably would have been good too, but I am just kind of holding it right now and driving three-handed. So I'm really not doing anything special to drive it now. Now that it's, you know, warmed up and moving, it drives pretty darn normally. It's just the cold start that's difficult. Vehicle speed sensor is a little intermittent in this, and it has been for a long time. So sometimes the cruise control works, sometimes it doesn't. Mega Squirt doesn't care about the vehicle speed. However, the original ECU would throw a check engine light. It continues to work just fine. I'm not sure if that affects your mileage, if it's not able to do all the fuel trim stuff. There's a policeman. Hello, policeman. Not interested in me. So this does have the big 2nd gen Trooper brakes with all new parts. Well, the calipers and dust shields are off of a parts truck I had, but new rotors and new pads from Summit Racing, front and rear. The rear brakes are stock, but I got, you know, matching pads and rotors. Stainless steel brake lines from Independent 4x. It's got the ADCO front and rear sway bars, which is just a night and day difference for driving it, but otherwise the suspension is totally stock. Not lifted, torsion bars aren't tweaked. As far as the drivetrain, it's got a limited slip out of just a, you know, OEM 2nd gen. It's got a center force dual friction clutch. I ordered that special. It may have been built to order because it was discontinued the larger rodeo diameter. It was expensive, it was like $450. But it's got that. It's got worn manual locking hubs. What else? So the engine is, like I was saying, a 3.4 liter with a 3.1 liter top end. It's got a Crane H260 cam, and then the valve train is comp cams. They're whole timing set. That's a new comp cams timing set. It's got, I mean, stock length, but I put new push rods in it. It's got the comp 1.6 ratio roller rockers and the comp springs. And now that it's, been running, there's no valve noise. It's kind of idling high for whatever reason. Things like that could probably get tuned out of it. That's obviously the idle air control motor opening for some reason. I'm not sure what that's about. Missed the shift. Has a pretty good stereo in it. It's got Polk speakers in the rear, Infinity in the front. An Alpine deck, it's iPod and all that, but it is about 10 years old. Sorry, kids, I'm not going anywhere. Hitchhikers. Air conditioning is not present. It had air conditioning, it never really worked, so there's no compressor or anything on there right now. You'd have to move the coil packs if you wanted to put the compressor back in. I don't know why it's idling high. I'm gonna pull over and just shut it off, turn it back on, and see if the idle settles down. So now we'll do a warm start here. So now that's normal, so yeah, I'm not sure why it starts idling high. And that's stuff that I never did on the GM ECU. It really drove totally normal. See, it's not stalling out or anything now that it's warm. Fuel economy is pretty poor. That's kind of what I wanted to see if I could dial in better with the Mega Squirt. It's low teens. Just because the engine is so mixed and matched, I just felt that the tune was never really close enough to any of the stock tunes. That maybe it was just running a little rich, but these never do get great gas mileage, especially with the V6. As far as being able to drive it cross country, I mean, there's nothing really unsafe about it. It pulls a little bit to the right, but not anything crazy. It's not like it's unsafe. Brakes are wonderful. Suspension all feels fine. Loves the car rides. Just trying to think of anything else of interest about it. I've had this truck for 14 years. It's my first truck that I got in high school. It's been a good long-term project. You know, I took a year of auto shop in high school, and then eventually I decided I wanted to do the Camaro upgrade on this. Its old engine was fine, but just wanted more power. So tore it apart in my folks' barn and learned as I went along, and it was my ambition to do the Camaro fuel injection, the original 3.4 stuff, which it turned out that ECU was not very well supported for tuning. So I did run it off of that ECU for a while with just a harness that I bought, which was, again, pretty expensive, but I could never get it to run right. But what ended up happening, which I found out after the fact, is that it's a sequential injected with a O2 sensor on either bank, and I had those mixed up for a while, and then I upgraded them to heated oxygen sensors and had one of them wired wrong, so I wasn't getting a reading off one side. So after the fact, I more or less figured out what I did wrong, but in the meantime I had changed the cam. And since I had changed the cam, I lost the cam position sensor, which means I lost sequential fuel injection. So I ended up going to, I had intended to go to the Bankfire ECU, which was the last thing I ran it on before the Mega Squirt. But it ended up I wanted to go on a trip with it, and wanted it for snowboarding season and whatnot. So I ended up putting the throttle body back on it with a 4.3 liter throttle body and a bored out intake, and that worked pretty well too, but I always just kind of missed how it ran with the sequential fuel injection because it just feels better. So then eventually I got bored with the throttle body and decided I wanted to put the sequential back on it, but the 3.4 manifolds just didn't fit in the engine bay very well. The intake just pointed right into the radiator, so instead of running a single fan, electric fan, I had to run dual 10-inch fans mounted low on the radiator so that I could clear that 90-degree silicone intake pipe right off the throttle body. Which it worked, but the 3.1 manifolds just fit so much better in the engine bay. So right now I'm running the 3.1 manifolds, and I have a single 15-inch Flexlite aluminum fan, which does have its own onboard thermostat, but it is also triggered off either the Mega Squirt or the previous GM ECU I was using. So it's kind of redundant there. You know, if for some reason you have a problem with the relay or something that's being triggered off the ECU, it does have its own onboard radiator probe thermostat. As long as it's got power to it, it'll still trigger. So that external relay could fail and it could still work. See if my cruise control works right now. Hey, it does. Look at that. So cruise control is currently working, but you can be driving it and it'll be perfectly fine, and then randomly it'll quit working. So if you're driving across country, it might work some of the time, all the time, none of the time. It's hard to tell. No problems with coolant leaking or temperature. Oil pressure's been just through the roof. When I put this engine in here, I put in a milling high volume oil pump. Some people say that those are bad. Oil pressure's certainly been high, but I've never had a problem with it. And this engine's been in here since 2006. I started the swap in 2006. So yeah, it's not been a problem. Other than, yeah, the oil pressure being high. When it's hot and it idles, it'll drop down a little bit. I think right now I'm running 1540 in here because that's what everybody loves. I've run 530 in it before, and when it's on a thinner oil, the oil pressure will be lower, but still higher than average. Again, I'm not concerned about it. And again, now that it's warmed up here, I mean, it's driving just fine. So I've done a 200-300 miles of a street tune, which is why it's driving nice. Once it's all warmed up and not having to do any warm-up enrichment or after-start enrichment or any of those, idle air type things for warm up. Once it's past all that, it does run just fine. And that's stuff I'm sure it just takes experience to kind of know where to set those things, and I can kind of guess and check, but to the point where if I keep this, I want to take it into Portland or Vancouver and take it to a dyno shop. There's some people there that are experienced with Mega Squirt and have a solid state dyno where they could just get this thing dialed in, but yeah, I'm not that guy. I'd love to learn, but I have other projects to work on, and I just haven't been giving this Trooper the attention that it needs to get really dialed in for the last few years. So it's just about time to let it go. It's been a great truck, but life changes. It's just kind of time to move on for me, I think. The engine itself, I've never taken the heads off of it. It was a salvage yard pull with, I believe, 70,000 miles when I got it. Pretty sure it's 70. When did I put that in? I really don't drive much because I only live like a mile away from work, and I have other cars. So in all those years, I want to say I bought this truck at 138,000 miles. Right now it's got 185. And I can't really even remember at what point I put the engine in there. 160, 165. So it's been in here a little while, but not all that many miles, 20, 30,000 miles. It's just been an ongoing project. It'll be working fine, and then I'll take it apart to try something different or learn something new. Little yellow Z car. Cool. Now it's idling perfectly normal, so yeah, I'm still not sure why it decided to open up the idle control and idle high there earlier. E-brake cable is all, it would freeze in the winter. It just needs lubricated, so I basically never use it because it'll stick on sometimes. Take the cables off and, oh, there she is, lube them, and it should be fine. I mean, nothing's broken about it per se. So yeah, it might have a little bit of lifter tick. Like I say, just another, I think another quarter turn on the rockers would probably do it. There's kind of conflicting information in various manuals about how many turns to do on the rocker arms. I think most of that ticking right now is actually just audible from the fuel injectors. Right now it's got 24-pound fuel injectors.